It's not my country, but it's where I live. It's where the sisters stand watching over the valley. It's here my story begins. This is an ancient place, cared for by Aboriginal people for thousands of years. Today, Gundungurra and Darug people continue to care for their ancestral homelands. Gundungurra and Darug country. I want to take you there. When we look out over these valleys, we're reminded of the ancestors, how they lived on this country, and the legacy they left us with. Thousands of years of occupation, and yet to look at this place, you'd assume that no one had ever been here. It's a living, breathing example of the way our people lived on this earth, of their responsibility to care for their country, keeping it right for now and for future generations. The Blue Mountains is now a World Heritage listed site. It's over 1 million hectares of preserved landscape. There are 6 Aboriginal language groups within that World Heritage area, and it's testament to their care and responsibility that we now have a World Heritage area, let alone a national park. It's when I look around and I see how beautiful this place is, I know that it's because of those ancestors and the traditional people who continue to care for their country.
Well, my name's Carol Cooper and we're in Darug and Gundungurra country in the beautiful Blue Mountains. As far as I'm concerned, the best place on earth. It's an amazing place, this. And what we're discussing today, it breaks my heart. But having said that, please let me thank you very much for bringing it to our attention. It's an amazing, the rubbish that people will just chuck over there. It's not just paper and cups. It's whatever they can get their hands on. And there's signposts, and there's garbage bins, the big green garbage bins. We've never considered looking over and down Echo Point. We've always looked straight out and around. We've never looked down. And by not looking down, we've missed what you have found and brought to our attention. And it's amazing how they can do that. Just go around destroying property like that and chucking it over Echo Point. Yeah, that's our place. We've kept the place clean for thousands and thousands of years, and now in this time we've got people that don't care, and that makes it really hard for us to cope with.
G'day, I'm Sandy. I'm here to particularly show you this bower today. We're in Katoomba, not far at all from Echo Point. I work in national parks. I work a lot with some fantastic people, and our main mission in Discovery is to provide environmental and cultural education.
My name is Chris Tobin. I work up here as an Aboriginal Discovery Ranger for national parks. I also do other work. I'm an artist.
We're here at the Heritage Centre in Blackheath, New South Wales, in the Blue Mountains National Park. This is the location for the No Waste on Country Leaving Only Footprints art exhibition that we held back in November. The artists worked on pieces that reflected either culture, country, or those issues of waste in the landscape that affect culture and country. Many of the pieces had materials that were collected from National Park or around people's homes, and they were put together in a way that reflected those issues and of course culture. So lots of Aboriginal people, traditional owners, as well as people from off-country different areas who have made this place their home. Now my job there as the cultural development worker means that I can develop programs that are either cultural but more artistic. And so when I was given the job, I thought about the things that I was passionate about, and well, the thing that I am passionate about is waste and looking at new ways and the right way to deal with waste. So the exhibition gave me an opportunity to obviously involve Aboriginal community and get people talking and sharing stories about how they treat waste at home, how they've grown up, how they recycle, what they're teaching their children, but also from an artistic point of view, getting creative, obviously looking at waste and then producing something fabulous out of it. Lots of the works were sculptural, and of course we did have some that were sort of on canvas as well. One of our artists did a piece that reflected the wasted lives at a location near Echo Point, where the three sisters are, and she felt very compelled to bring up that issue and that sense of the wasted lives. We have a lot of sorry business around those cliff tops, and unfortunately it is just something that happens up here. And for Aboriginal people, particularly traditional owners, they're very affected by that story. Unfortunately, when you go off the track, just off the roadside, you find, people have dumped waste and household items and things like that. We found a rocking chair, and these pieces were the arms of the rocking chair. And I sort of thought, well, they'd make a really beautiful piece, so I was kind of pleased how they turned out. The exhibition was to encourage local people, Aboriginal people, to have a look at these issues, that no matter where you go, you'll find traces of waste in the landscape. Often we look at the beauty of the place, we celebrate the natural heritage and the cultural heritage. We come here to the lookouts and we cast our eyes across the valleys and the mountains and see how beautiful it is, but in fact you only have to look a short distance to see that there is rubbish. It's either blown in by the wind, it's come off the highways, or people have literally thrown stuff into the forest or into the landscape somehow. So no matter where you go, really, there's that impact. And the exhibition, what we wanted to do was just raise that awareness, but we wanted to do it in a fun way, in a creative way, and we felt that we had achieved that. For our people, we have that knowledge. We know that our people and our ancestors have lived on country for thousands of years in a way that land was always kept right, and country was good and clean and produced great food and good healthy food. So we had an opportunity to take our group of local artists out to Katoomba Waste Management Facility, and I wanted them to get a sense of seeing where urban waste goes, the waste that we put out when our trucks come to our houses and pick up our rubbish, where that rubbish goes and how it's treated. The things that we learnt about that site were very, very important for all of us, because it gave us a sense of it belongs to us. That issue of waste there and how we're dealing with it, how councils are dealing with it, belongs to us because it's our rubbish in there as well. So that was also a very interesting thing that we learnt while we were out there. It's up to us really. It's up to us about what we're throwing into landfill, and I got very excited that we started to talk about this stuff, because we find waste even in some of our most remote places in the national park, but also places where Aboriginal people have a deep connection to, particularly some of their dreaming sites, and we've seen some of the impact of waste in those areas. So for me, it's exciting in that the Blue Mountains Aboriginal community are starting to look at this new way of living on the landscape and looking at our new responsibility, but also the idea that I'd love other Aboriginal and Islander communities to join together and participate in exhibitions like No Waste on Country, Leaving Only Footprints.
I get the opportunity to deliver what I consider to be important cultural messages. These are really, I guess, explaining that we have a tradition in this country of being, great environmental stewards. And so we'll bring in a toolkit, a traditional toolkit, and that's like here, where we'll bring in weapons and tools that people used. And of course, the thing that we love showing is how they were made and that they're all natural materials. And we make a point when we're talking with kids in particular. Kids don't realise that these materials are new, and so part of what we do is to educate people about the new materials. And so we'll show how these types of materials were made and how they were used, and the kids will tell us what they're made of and things like that. And we'll show that these kind of things can end up in the bush, no problem. And people have been doing that for thousands of years. But these days, we've got new materials. And these new materials, the scientists tell us, can be around in our environments for 300 years.
For me, I guess it's interesting that we work in an environment where people talk a lot about caring for country, but as soon as you look at a bower like this, you can't help but question how much we've impacted and continue to impact on the landscape today. And the amount of blue plastic in this bower I do, just find so disturbing. It's kind of exciting in one way. These bowerbirds are amazing creatures. This bower will have been recycled by countless bowerbirds already, satin bowerbirds that is. There's different bowerbirds all across Australia. But our local guys are very dark black with beautiful blue eyes and a really shiny, sleek sheen to them, to their feathers. And once upon a time, these guys would have primarily collected blue and yellow and green kind of treasures, things like snail shells, feathers, berries, flowers and stuff. And you will still, throughout all this debris, actually find the occasional natural treasure in amongst here. But for the most part, as you can see, most of these treasures didn't exist until, certainly within the last century or so. But yeah, there are still some beautiful things. I'm disturbing his things here. Beautiful feather that I imagine would have once been a real pride and joy collectible for a satin bowerbird. It is kind of funny, these guys, as you can see, clothes pegs are very popular, and plenty of them get pinched from my washing line just up the road here, no doubt. The blue plastic lids are particularly disturbing, particularly the rings off these sort of ones, things like this that can actually get trapped around a bird's beak or throat and cause tragic problems. Also tiny little things like pen lids and stuff that a lot of, not just the bowerbirds, but other birds around can swallow in mistake of berries or whatever. And obviously the animal will go back to the earth, but the plastic won't be very recyclable at all, and who knows how many critters can suffer from that. I guess to me one of the real joys is we have thousands of school kids that come up to the Blue Mountains each year specifically to learn about their environment. For me it's important for them just to realise something like this. This isn't just about being out in a national park, but these sorts of debris get flicked around in schoolyards from here up to the north coast, and they'll still be part of the impact on our lifestyle and on our environment. I do have a bit of a dilemma where I'm not inclined to clean up all of this plastic, despite my concerns about some of it being here. The bowerbird now obviously relies on this, but obviously if I cleaned up all the human impact of this particular bower here, then the poor guy probably be pretty lonely through summer. I don't imagine he's going to get too many friends, because relative to what the girls expect around this part of town, this is a really impressive bower, and if I take away all his plastic, suddenly he's not going to be nearly so attractive. So we won't ruin his entire future. And it is great to see, at least these days, these blue plastic things are snappable, so they're less likely to choke critters. But It is still suggested to lots of people that it's better to only ever try and buy your milk and juice products with non-blue or non-yellow lids if you can. Milk carton, of course, is the obvious solution.
So we're trying to raise awareness on that, that we have this very proud tradition of keeping the country clean and alerting people to the fact that that's not happening necessarily.
Today country looks very different. Highways, streets, buildings, and people from every corner of the earth. And mob from other Aboriginal countries visiting here, passing through, and even living here. For traditional owners, the Blue Mountains is their home, their country, their culture, their past, their present, their future. A place of overwhelming beauty, and the country demands respect. And the country shows us how, and it shows us what happens when we don't respect it.
The exhibition that we concentrated on was detailing down the bottom of Echo Point. And Echo Point is where you go to see the Three Sisters. It's the most visited Aboriginal site in Australia, and sadly the rubbish down the bottom is a testament to that too. We've got decades and decades of rubbish piled up on top of each other, and it's not like you can even point to when that finished. It's still going on. So this exhibition is very important. People got to know that's happening.